Hello everyone, and welcome to the last assignment for the internship program for Heritage for All. The last case study presented is a small town called Genoni, and the topic is revitalization of rural landscapes. But first of all, let's start with the question, what is a rural landscape? Rural landscapes are products of a 1,000-year-old collaboration between human society and nature. They are results of natural and cultural processes, telling the history of ancestors and originally setting the cultural premises of a territory. Keeping a balance between protecting, conserving, and redeveloping heritage values of rural landscapes is the premise for achieving rural regeneration. And this is how the EU-funded project Ruritage describes one of its systemic innovation areas, that is, landscapes. Although the case study presented in this article is not included in the Ruritage project, this description is the ideal introduction to the revitalization of Genoni's rural heritage landscape. Giunone is a small town with a population of less than 1,000, approximately 800 people, located in an area called Sarcidano in central Sardinia. Its territory covers an area of about 44 square kilometers and presents a remarkable variety of geomorphological landscapes, archaeological evidences, and cultural activities. Among the features of the territory, there's its proximity with a nationwide renowned plateau called Jarrah House to a wide variety of plants and animals, especially the last European wild horses, namely the Jarrah horses, and the presence of a geological and paleontological site discovered in the 1980s, whose name is Cava Duiduru. And let's see now how these features contribute to the revitalization of this small town. The so-called Jarrah is a large basalt plateau with a surface of about 45 square kilometers that falls within the territory of different towns, and among them there are Gesturi, Tuili, and Genoni. Its height is 550 meters above sea level, and its name probably derives from Latin, the word glaria, meaning gravel. Its formation began around 20 to 25 million years ago, when this area was still submerged by the sea and sedimentary rocks were formed, especially marlstone and sandstone. This plateau is especially renowned for the so-called Jarrah horses that you can see in the picture. There are wild medium-high horses whose coat can usually present very dark shades. Their strong body could be of great support in the farmyards of the surrounding areas, and this is why until the last century they were used by local farmers to thresh grains and legumes. However, this coexistence with man at risk threatening their own existence, since they were not completely wild, but not even forced into breeding. In the 1950s, the advent of mechanical threshers completely changed the farmers' habits, breaking a centuries-old tradition. However, some breeders tried to crossbreed the Jarrah horses with other horses with the purpose to sell them for meat, putting their very survival at risk. And it was around the mid-1970s that the Equestrian Institute of Atzori committed to safeguarding their lives by identifying them and trying to increase the number of the native Jarrah horses. And their story and their relationship with the local community is now told at the Museo del Cavallino della Jarrah, which literally translated is the Jarrah Horses Museum, and this museum is located in Genoni. You can see a picture of one of the museum's rooms here in this slide. It is a small ethnographic museum telling the story of the territory vineyards and winemaking, the town and the countryside, food and people's health, not only through objects and the building itself, which is a former farmer's house, but also through video interviews and arts. In late 2014, the museum was completely reorganized, and Pia Valentinis, an artist living in Cagliari, was commissioned a number of illustrations to improve the museum's interpretation. The interviews realized for the museums were examined by the artist, who created different illustrations that were later associated to QR codes that visitors can easily scan with their devices to learn more about the different stories that the museum objects can tell. And this expedient was meant to both make the museum more relevant to a larger audience and more appealing to kids and children. Pia Valentini's illustrations and quotes from the interviews also became an illustrated guide to the museum. The Paleo Archaeo Center, called PARC, P-A-R-C, is Genoni's site to tell the story and the importance of Duiduru's geology and paleontology. Duiduru is the site you can see in the first picture, and some of the fossils that it contains are shown in the second picture. And this small and unique museum is divided into a workshop area and two main sections. The archaeological section, about the archaeological evidences and findings in a territory, among which the Santo Antino Nuragic Holy Well is the most remarkable example. With its depth of around 39 meters, it is the deepest holy well of the island. Besides a diorama, visitors can also explore the inside of the holy well thanks to museum's goggle and a 3D reconstruction that also shows the view from the hill, the Santo Antino Hill. While the paleontological section presents the stratigraphic interpretation and a number of fossil evidences, among which a stunning megalodon's tooth found between Genoni and Nuragus. The park that you can see here in the picture feels that education is a resource and a means to establish a dynamic way to communicate and learn, and therefore focuses on a cultural return on investment for its activities. Such return is thus represented by an active participation of visitors, especially families and children, in the cultural growth of the territory, finding the right balance between consumption, exploitation of resources, and skills involved, or history as a trigger for individual and collective futures, are some examples of the topics addressed by the museum's workshops. Both the park and the Jarrah Horses Museum are run by the Giunone cooperative, which is specialized in museum management, events organization, and especially the delivery of dynamic and creative workshops. Indeed, it is hard to talk about these museums without mentioning these workshops. The Giunone cooperative activities are classifiable under four main categories: paleontology, archaeology, recycling, and environmental education. Besides, they also provide summer camps for children, which involve the whole territory, both in terms of activities and accommodation, and supporting services. As for paleontology, the Paleo Lab provides children with elements of paleontology, stimulating their curiosity with an active and lively approach. This workshop is focused on Sardinia's geology history, and especially the Miocene, 23 to 5 million years ago, and Genoni's territory with the Duiduru geopaleosite. Besides indoor lessons, where kids are shown the different stratigraphy and animals that populated our planet millions of years ago, children can also visit the geopaleo site and see the fossils on site. Later, in the workshop area of the museum, they learn about fossil cleaning techniques and understand the importance of fossils and of a paleontologist's work. During the Archaeo Lab, children are taught the technique used by the Nuragic civilization to create their famous bronzetti, bronze statuettes whose size ranges from few to about 40 centimeters that could represent human beings, animals, furnitures and tools, carriages and boats, as well as nuragi that were realized with a technique called lost wax casting. The recycling workshops are meant to raise awareness on recycling and appropriate waste management. Through the use of different materials, visitors can learn while playing, and these workshops are designed for both children and adults. And lastly, there are summer camps that are mainly focused on paleontology and last 1 to 3 days. These are study holidays for children where through their young paleontologist kit, they will complete some field work under the supervision of a real paleontologist and other professionals. These camps are divided into indoor and outdoor activities involving both Genoni's museums and rural sites. At the park, participants will learn about the different geological eras and how to clean fossils, having some hands-on experience with real geological samples. On the other hand, at the Duiduru site, they will see what a former seabed looks like with fossils from millions of years ago and learn more about the many animal specimens that lived in Sardinia's Miocene. In addition, the Jarrah is an ideal setting to talk about volcanic eruptions, take pleasant walks, and meet rare plants and animals, such as the Jarrah horses. Children and their families often participate in more than one activity, and thanks to the online and offline word of mouth, more and more applications are submitted for both workshops or summer camps. All of these activities, however, can be delivered not only thanks to the expertise and commitment of the Giunone cooperative, but also thanks to a sound territorial network created over the years. Overnight stays and meals are arranged with local companies, for example, the bakeries, agritourism, bed and breakfast, stationery shops, etc., and also with local food producers. Improving the quality of life in remote communities is directly related to the survival and enhancement of their culture, built heritage, and landscapes. Conservation of these places creates a spirit of home while interlinking generations to connect them to their past and reinforce a sense of belonging. Creating a sense of belonging allows community to feel more responsible for the territory they reside in and the heritage therein, thus building a greater awareness on the fragility and need for conservation and valorization of rural landscapes. As in the case study examined last time, Mamoyada and its tourism development through culture, Genoni's rural culture and landscape have been placed at the center of this revitalization process, becoming a resource for a socio-economic development. Genoni's museums are not replicable since their meaning is in close connection with the territory and highlight its cultural uniqueness. This journey through Sardinia and the many facets of its rural identity started with the results of a survey conducted by Eurispes, an Italian private research institute, that was published in 2018 about mainland Italians' perception of Sardinia, according to which the island is mostly perceived as a tourist destination for its coasts and crystal clear sea, but also as a place with a strong food identity. Through these months, Sardinia has been presented under different points of view, showing that there is more to it than just the island's sea and food, and that its identity should be perceived as more than just past traditions. Thank you for listening and hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for all of these months, comments and likes to our activities as internees with Heritage for All.